Welcome to the second day of Rav Kook Yomi. It is wonderful to be back with you studying the Torah of Rav Kook and having a moment to connect Eretz Israel in our lives. And it's wonderful to be able to do it through Rav Kook. We had a wonderful response to our first shiur yesterday. Just, of course, feel free to communicate with me anytime you have any questions. Let's review last time. We started the first Maimar in Sefer Orot in the book called Lights. Really Rav Kook's probably most famous work about Eretz, and the section is on Eretz Israel, on the land of Israel. And he said Eretz Israel einena devar chitzoni, that he was talking about the idea that Eretz Israel is not some exterior thing. It's not something that is and what he means by this is it's not some intermediary. It's the land of Israel is not some thing that we use in order to get something else, right? We don't use Eretz Israel, for example, or the land of Israel so that Jews only, and again, very important, only to just because the only purpose of the Eretz Israel is to keep Jews safe. Well, the only purpose of Eretz Israel is for cultural revolution or some kind of cultural revelation of the Jewish people, or the only point of Eretz Israel is to do the special mitzvot associated with the land. But what Rav Kook posits is specifically Eretz Israel is connected to our very essence of who we are as a Jewish people. It allows us to reveal our very essence of who we are, that we are connected to Eretz Israel in a very, very deep way. And it's inseparable. It's this inseparable bond we have with Eretz Israel. It's basically what we talked about last time. We ended on this idea that we should not be thinking about Eretz Israel as something of what can I get out of Eretz Israel, right? What can I use it for, right? I'm only going to be in Eretz Israel if it's safe or if it's, if it works for me, right? But rather that's how we treat somebody who is not, if you were treating somebody like that in your own life, a person, right? That would not be considered a loving relationship. That would be you're using that person for your own good, right? Versus a loving relationship where I will sacrifice for you. I will be with you no matter what, even if it's hard for me. Why? Because what's really important is being with you. Okay, so I think that's really, really important. Okay, let's keep going though. So he continues on this Maimar in the third paragraph in the Sefer. He says, Mitoch umitoch kach, and because of this, Efshar lamod al tochan shel sgulat kedushat Eretz Israel ulahotzi lefol et omek chibata. So what he's saying is because of this and because of this concept, it's impossible. It's impossible to understand and to comprehend and to really experience the content of the specialness of the holiness of the land of Israel, and to bring it out into fruition, the depth of how beautiful it is. Okay, I'm just translating specifically from the source itself, but what he's saying here is it's impossible to comprehend and actually absorb the real beauty and the real value of what Eretz Israel is, right? In a deep way, b'shum haskala rationalit, right? You might have heard rational there if you're not a Hebrew speaker, right? In some kind of logical way to okay, I'm going to explain to you why Israel's so great, or it makes some intellectual, logical sense of why Israel is wonderful, right? So you can't understand it b'shum haskala rationalit anushit, right? Some human logical understanding. But rather, we can only understand Eretz Israel and really experience its great depth and its beauty through the Spirit of God that is upon the nation as a whole, right? So this is really important. Number one claim that he says is that the reason that we experience the only time in which we experience the beauty of Eretz Israel, and we really experience what we're supposed to be experiencing from Eretz Israel, which is how beautiful, how amazing it is, right? The words can't describe, right? But that special feeling we get when we're connected to Eretz Israel, the only way we get that is through the Spirit of God, right? It is this divine thing. We have a divine connection to the land. It's not some human need. Oh, rationally, logically, it's got a lot of water, or it's got, nice fertile land, or et cetera, et cetera. But rather, it's from God, right? There's a divine connection that we have this land. And second point that he makes, it's really beautiful, is that we can only experience that even if you say, okay, the land of Israel is from God and we have this divine connection to Eretz Israel, we can only experience that as an ummah, as a nation, as a community together. Now, what's very interesting, he could have said as an am, or he could have said as a people, right? That you only can experience Eretz Israel as a people, right, living on the land, to experiencing the land together, right, which makes sense. Okay, I can only experience Eretz Israel by being with my fellow Jews, and to experience, then I can only experience Eretz Israel. If I just go to Eretz Israel alone, right, I don't really experience this, and I'm the only Jew there, right, I don't really experience the connection to it. But we experience the connection, this special connection, also only through being with your fellow Jew. That would be good if he said that. That'd be wonderful. But he actually goes a step further. And he says it's not only about community. It's not only about that this is a communal experience of Kedusha, of holiness, right? But rather it's as an ummah, as a nation, right? A nation is defined as a group of people, a group of community that has a similar set of values, that is living on their land and running a sovereign country or sovereign government, has power over the land, right? To rule, right? Have sovereignty, a nation, right? And so we only really experience the Kedusha and the specialness of Eretz Yisrael, not only when Jews just live on the land, but when Jews try to live on the land and govern themselves and have freedom, right? And have power over themselves to actually be a nation, right? That's the only time we could really experience the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, which means, I think is interesting, like for a long time, Jews went to live in Eretz Yisrael, and especially pious Jews would go to live and die in Eretz Yisrael, be buried there. But what was new about Zionism, and is new about the reality that we have the state of Israel right now, at least in the 20th century, right, is that there's a Jewish sovereignty there. The Jews have power there, right? That Jews can govern themselves, that they're free to be who they are together. And that's what Rav Kook is saying. For Jews to have sovereignty in the land of Israel, it enables to experience a part of ourselves that we can't experience in any other way. And look, I think we all get this by going to Israel, and like it's as simple as seeing Coca-Cola in Hebrew when you go to Israel, like the Coca-Cola letters in Hebrew, or as simple as having being off on, instead of having Christmas break or winter break, or spring break or something like that, you have Passover break or Sukkot break, or a break for the high holidays, that the school calendar runs according to the Jewish calendar, right? That's what Jewish sovereignty looks like, to actually live in a Jewish society. Of course, we're free as American Jews living here, but we don't actually live in a Jewish society that has Jewish sovereignty, right? So there's an extra Kedusha, there's an extra something special that we get to experience in Eretz Israel, and a part, of course, of ourselves that we experience only when there's Jewish sovereignty. So I want to always connect Rav Kook's deeply philosophical and really deep concepts he's saying to our actually daily lived life. He continues on. Right? And that this special feeling, it's so hard to come up with words, right? But this special part of our soul that we experience when we do this, right, is actually, it's imprinted on our very spiritual nature of our soul. Right? That even when we are outside the land of Israel's Jews and we're living alone and we don't have that power, right? That part of us, that Eretz Israel part of us, is still here. It's still within us. It's still who we are. And it's a part of us that we just don't get to experience. It sort of lies dormant within us, right? When we are not in Eretz Israel and there's no Jewish sovereignty there. There's a piece of ourselves that we don't get to experience, right? The specialness of in terms of the potential of what the Jewish people can be. Right, that's huge. Right, that's a huge understanding, and very different, I think, than the way we think of the individual and we think of identity now. It's like very disconnected from a physical land. It's very that you are who you are, no matter where you live or no matter where you go. You are the same person. Right, that's not the way Rav Kook is looking at it. Actually, we change. Our very personhood changes who we are. Different parts of ourselves get activated, right, when we go and live in different places. Right? So we still have that part of us when we live outside of Eretz Israel, but it's dormant. It's not revealed. We don't get access to it. And so we get access to parts of ourselves that we don't have when we live in Eretz Israel. Make sense so far? Okay.
Yeah.
Shihish, do you have comments, questions?
You know, it's interesting because
I missed the first class. I had a vet appointment with one of my dogs, but Kristen showed me the link so I could go back and watch. So that's great. I tried to explain this to my non-Jewish friends, especially the ones that are up in arms with the conflict going on right now with, post-October stuff. And I get the same thing, but you're an American and you live in the United States. I said, that's not it. It's integrally part of who I am. Yes, obviously it's more enhanced when you get to be there and be in the environment, but you can't take that away from a person because that's my Jewish identity. And they don't seem to understand the ancestral connection to the homeland. They think whoever takes over and moves in should automatically just get to claim. They don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's because they're not Jewish. They have countries of where their ancestors came from, but they don't relate it because too many people don't separate being Jewish from Judaism. They don't realize it's an ethno-religious group. It's not just a belief
Right.
like Christianity or the replacement theologies. It's just who we are.
Yeah, 100%. I think like your frustration is real.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, like what I try to tell people is like I think what Rav Kook is telling us here is that sacred relationship we have with Eretz Israel, which comes from something that's imprinted in who we are as a nation, as a Jewish people, and it's just imprinted in our very identity. It's unassailable. It is what it is also inexpressible, right? It's not understood by logical human means. So to
Yeah.
expect a non-Jew to understand our connection to Eretz Israel is sort of a fool's task. It's futile, right? They could try to get part of it or to try to experience some of it, but of course, as a Jew, you're going to be the one who's really experiencing this, right?
Exactly.
And it's going to be so powerful that it's going to be indescribable. So I think there's an important part to give non-Jews a break here and to understand, okay, they're not going to understand our unique
No,
connection, and in some ways that makes it more holy, that makes it more beautiful. It's just
correct. Because
mercenary.
it does.
I wish they
Yeah.
would understand a little bit so that the anti-Semitism would stop,
That's the
right?
part that gets me. They use it as a grounds to say that the Jewish people don't have a claim to the homeland. And to me, I feel like I'm trying to explain color to a blind person who's never seen anything before. But I try to realize it's coming from their lens and they can't feel what I feel because that's part of what being Jewish is, and that's what sets us apart.
Yep, I think you make a really good point. It's hard, but it's real.
Yeah.
Let's finish this paragraph and we'll be done for today. She sholechet et kaveh b'tzva'im tv'im b'chol ha'archot shel hargasha bria, that it sends forth. Remember that this essence, our connection to Eretz Israel inside of us, he says it sends forth its waves, right? It sends forth in all directions, in different expressions and different colors, throughout all of nature, in all of the pathways of experience and feeling throughout all of creation. Sorry, I almost knocked over my coffee in excitement. Right? This idea that once we have and think about that identity, that piece of our connection to Eretz Israel that we have inside of us. It's like concealed when we live out in. We don't experience it. It's concealed when we live in outside of Israel. We're not living in the land. We're not experiencing it at that moment, right? It's kind of inside of us. But once we actually live in the Jewish nation lives in Eretz Israel and has a sovereignty there, it sort of spreads forth. It reveals itself. And I think what he means here is it becomes alive. It's not a concept, right? The Jews who are living when there wasn't a Medinat Israel, when there wasn't a state of Israel, and Jews lived outside the land, they pined to move to Israel and pined to be there. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, right? But it's not actually real, right? There is no Israel. There's no expression of what a Jewish nation looks like. But once Israel's real and it's a real place in which you can actually live and be there, right? And there's a real society, there's Israeli soccer and Israeli garbage pickup and Israeli, I don't know, whatever you Israeli cuisine, right? All these different things, right? That essence, that really sacredness of Israel spreads out and is revealed in the real world, and that's a really powerful experience. Let's finish what he's saying though, because we're running out of time here. And he continues. He says, "Umizrachat et zrichata elyona al pi ota amida shel ruach kedusha elyona." Right, and it's saying something very similar. Right, it keeps spreading out, and it shines out. He's using language almost like the sun here, shining its rays out into throughout the world. Hamimalayet chaim v'noam elyon et lev levav kedoshe arayon v'amuke amachshava Yisraelit. And this its waves and its light, once it finally gets revealed in living reality, fills up our entire life with its elevated pleasantness, and it fills up our whole entire heart with the holiness of its ideas, the depths of the thought of Israeli or Jewish identity and thought in a very unique way. So I think he's saying something really beautiful here, that we get filled with this kedusha and this special holiness when we actually live and experience the land. And this is true of any relationship, right? When we actually experience relationship and love and we actually live in it, that's when we really experience it in an ineffable way. It's really just hard to describe by itself. So again, I think he's going deeper into our understanding, our connection, our relationship to Eretz Israel, its kedusha, its holiness, and I think this has a lot to say to us, of course, today as well, and the unique time that we live in to have a Medina Israel, to have a state of Israel. I'm Yisrael Chai, everybody. Thank you for joining us today with our daily Rav Kook. Will be tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Everybody will have another Rav Kook Yomi. Thank you, everybody.
Could I ask a quick question before you sign off?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, I have a cousin in Wisconsin. The Jewish community is shrunk. If you're not